Racer can't defend. He's got the outside line for the second part, and he can't hold on.
Going the long way around, we're going to be 3 wide for the lead as they all come to the line. Who is going to take it in the end?
And here comes Lockwood. He's going to make the move to the outside. Quinn tries to force him off a little bit, but there he goes. It's going to be side by side through turn 1.
Will he be able to cover him off? He does. Weaving back to the left-hand side. Reynolds is trying everything. The kitchen sink is being thrown at it.
They're leaning on each other. Coming into turn number 3. It's going to be a drag race through 3 and 4. Coming back to the line. Here comes Frisch on the bottom.
Richard's going to hold the inside. Tries to be the late breaker here. They're going to be side by side through the final chicane. They bang doors, but keep it clean.
As they're still 4 wide on the run down into the back straightaway. Demerit's looking for a line as well. What is going on in Michigan?
No back into the fence. They're still beating and banging.
Oh
and to the line.
He is much faster coming through there. Is there damage on Challenger? Abramitis is ahead. There's going to be a race to the line. Who is going to get it?
Well, a very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, as the High Point Racing GT World Challenge Season number 9 heads into the second half of what has been an exciting calendar so far. Welcome everybody to the Racer Nexus Broadcast Network, and up here in the Global Broadcast Centre is Alex Goldschmidt, once again rejoined by Jake Sanson in the booth, and behind the scenes our producer Rob Campbell, providing these wonderful images that you see on the screens in glorious sound and vision. More to the point, it is the case of we have to do, as usual here on Racer Nexus, a little bit of housekeeping. Firstly, let's take you through the calendar here for Season 9 of the championship itself. We've already had 4 rounds. We've been to Daytona, Sebring, Long Beach, and just last week we were at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal in Canada. But then we've got here at Barcelona tonight. Next week we go to the Glen for round 6, the night race at Spa-Francorchamps on June the 14th, and the home of Petit Le Mans Road Atlanta on June the 21st will conclude Season 9 on round 8. Also, more to the point, it is the case we have to talk through our sponsors. Our title sponsor of the series, Hymo Setups, providing sim racing setups that are very professional indeed, used by High Point Racing drivers, help to elevate the standard of racing across all classes. And we do have 2 classes in GT World Challenge, so each race winner every week, as it has been for the past 4 rounds, will get a 1-month Hymo subscription. And there will be an end of season random draw where one driver will get a 12-month subscription. Next up, Monster Designs, with custom race liveries providing professional designs and branding for drivers and teams. Livery giveaways will be done randomly throughout the season. And finally, Admin Box. Broadcast and operational support, helps with race control, and an organisational tool supporting leagues and structures. Okay, for those wondering, what is the format? Well, it is a 15-minute qualifying session for every single race, which will decide the grid for a 60-minute adventure with a mandatory pit stop for all competitors. Let's take you through the circuit itself as we're just coming down to the final 3 minutes here and qualifying. The Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya, the Grand Prix circuit, opened back in 1991, and we will be using the chicane variation, which has 16 turns, measures just over 4.675 kilometers, that's 2.9 miles, and also coincided with the Summer Olympic Games just a year later. And with that in mind, welcome back, Jake Sanson. It's good to have you with me alongside me in the commentary box, buddy. You missed a bit of a doozy back at Canada last week.
It certainly seems I do, but it is great to be back here for the 5th round of the championship on a circuit which, in my experience in real world racing,
tends to leave a little bit of satisfaction on the table, whereas in esports, it is one of my absolute favorites, particularly in GTs. You get so much joy from driving around this place. It gives you a little bit of everything. There's a touch of elevation and camber offset. There's variations of degree of corner. There's so many challenges around the turns, and it's very difficult to actually get into a metronomic rhythm round here. So it does test the concentration and the stamina of the esports racer, particularly in GT, because this place invites you to push a little bit further to the ragged edge without actually giving you any favors along the way. It's really exciting to see what happens here.
Yes, indeed. We're coming down to the last 90 seconds. And, well, Lucia Tosi, the lady from Costa Rica for Galaxy Team Esports, did put it on pole position, but unfortunately her race came apart very, very early, as did Bryce Fenson's, because Henry Fenson's, because they both came into drama. But hopefully, well, Tosi at the moment is leading in qualifying with a 1:47.742. and is 7/100ths quicker than Daniel Pino, the Chilean driver. Here's Henry Fenson, the man from Sydney for Evolution Sim Sports, currently running P5 at the moment in the Mercedes-Benz, the brightly coloured number 10 car, and it's Nicholas Matthews in the number 55 Porsche that is leading the way, and that's good old Big Nick in the Lunatic Racing Adrenaline Motorsports Porsche 992 GT3R. And again, like you say, Jake, it is going to be the case of how you get around this circuit. And whilst I say that, there's one other thing that we need to mention. Got to tell you how the points are looking after the halfway point of the series, because it is looking rather interesting indeed. Jace Larson is now the new championship leader in GTD Pro, ahead of Lucia Tosi and Christian Ruiz, who won last time out at Canada. Alex Velasco and Avery Hart round out the top 5, with Daniel Pino, Henry Fenson, Jan Santiago Berrios, Ryan Anderson and Alejandro Tosi, the latter two both on 51 points apiece, and they round out the top 10. Carlos Ruiz Padilla, the man from Puerto Rico, leads Nicholas Matthews by just 10 points coming to this 5th round out of 8, ahead of Chris Nauman, Thomas King, Ken Clodin in Clodin 1, not Ecto 1, folks. We're not going to try and take any copyright infringement off of the Ghostbusters franchise. Bill Murray, don't worry, we're sorry about that one. Will Adson rounds out the top 6, ahead of Alex Giforishin, James Lambert, Jason Blaine and Chris Edwards, as we have hit the checkered flag here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya. There is Ken Clodin in the... I love that. He's got Spengler Whitman and all the crew on the fenders, and then he's got the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man on the hood. How's about that for attention to detail?
It is stunning. This is one of my favorite things about esports. People really do wear their hearts on their sleeves, and you can see what they're passionate about. I've always had a real joy. You can do in esports a lot of the things that would be impossible, or at least very difficult to pull off in the real world. There's Eduardo Delano and Alex Velasco just finishing off their runs. What's going to be very interesting going into this one already is that in each of the classes. So with Jace Larson back there in P6 in his McLaren, and Carlos Ruiz Padilla down in 4th in GTD, it's definitely going to be fascinating to see what they will do. As I keep telling people, in every form of motorsport, it's not about what you do when you win, it's about what you do when you don't. You can see the people who have been able to get good points on the board because they've been able to keep their consistency high. Lucia Tosi right up there, 2nd in the championship, only 11 points back. It's going to be fascinating to see what she can do tonight when she's got very little pressure. She's on pole, Larson in P6, so she's got everything to gain. Larson's got a lot to lose and is already on the back foot.
Yeah, so that concludes qualifying for the 5th round out of 8 here at in the Montmeló region of Spain, the home of the Formula One Grand Prix every year, but it looks like Madrid's going to be taking that honour. But let's take you through what is going to be a rather exciting start. Well, we have got, well, let's put it into perspective here, Jake. 18 GTDs, 8 GTD Pros, which equals 26 cars hurtling down to T1. Now, if anyone has watched the recent I think I'm not going to use the word chaos. I would say caramelage into the Retrophilia chicane on this past weekend's GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS. Run down to T1. If you've seen it, Jake's seen it, I've seen it, Rob's last, our producer behind the scenes. It was not a pretty sight, let me tell you that much, but hopefully we'll be out of dramas heading into turn 1. But everyone is starting to ready up on the grid. So let's take you through the starting order. Lucia Tosi for the second round in a row puts it on pole position. In the number 107 Galaxy Team Esports Ferrari, she'll be joined by the Chilean Daniel Pino alongside on the front row. And it's Christian Ruiz and Alejandro Tosi on an all-Mercedes row 2. Henry Fenson and Jace Larson row 3. Alex Velasco and Nicholas Matthews row 4, with Will Atom and Chris Nauman rounding out your overall top 10. Then it's going to be Carlos Ruiz Padilla and Ken Clodin on row 6. James Lambert and Itamar Alimla from Israel rounding out the next row. Donald Powell and Edgardo Gomez from Mexico round out row 8, with Liam Habol and Gavin Cambret rounding out row 9. Completing the top 20, it's Jason Blaine and Jim Drake. Matthew Mitchell, Edward Delano, Nicholas Lanciers, David Henry, Thomas King and Philip LaFranca round out the 26 strong grid. 60 minutes underneath the Spanish sunshine, and let's have a look at the weather, because it is more than toasty. It's rather crispy on the tarmac. 27 degrees Fahrenheit, 53 degrees track temperature, air 86 degrees Fahrenheit, 30 degrees centigrade, humidity the lowest I've ever seen on an iRacing server, 14%, partially cloudy. These tyres, Jake, they be a cooking.
They certainly will be. I mean, I spent last week in Macau in 92% humidity and 31 degrees Celsius, and by goodness, let me tell you how difficult that is to cope with. But yeah, 14% humidity here. The other thing that's going to be very significant going into this particular race from my side, Alex, is that on the circuit here at Catalunya, you've got so much more runoff than you would have had at Long Beach and at Montreal. So mistakes will be forgiven to a certain extent. We may see a higher percentage of finishers compared to what we did in the last 2 races of the championship, but at the same time, drivers can't afford to be too frivolous with those errors. They've still got to be very precise. They've still got to be quite calculated. You can afford to push a little bit harder and take a risk a little bit more daring than you would have done in the last 2 rounds. But there is still quite the high propensity for finding those barriers. It is not an easy circuit to get right, and drivers will be tempted to push a little bit further, but they will be given a tiny bit more leeway than in the last 2 weeks.
I don't believe it. Daniel Pino is in pit road. Oh my days.
Again.
It has been drama 2 weeks in a row for the Chilean in the Good Smile Hatsune Miku livery in the 477. So Lucia Tosi has got a gap alongside her. The pace car is in pit road. We're coming down the main straightaway as we're set and ready to go green here for 60 minutes. Here we go. And it's Tosi that's going to put the hammer down. Alejandro Tosi going with Christian Ruiz, going for a different livery, unlike the Red Bull, well, the VerstappenRacing.com livery he went with last week, and he's looking to the inside. It's going to be 3 wide for the race lead here into T1. Alejandro Tosi to the outside, and there's a bit of a squeeze. And it's a reverse of what happened last week. I cannot believe it. Lucia Tosi gets squeezed by Alejandro to the outside, Christian to the inside. I cannot Adam and Eve it. That is the second time that Lucia Tosi and Henry Fenson have been involved, and Lucia Tosi, let's have a look at the replay. So she's got Fenson right on a rear bumper. Christian Ruiz squeezes her, tags Alejandro Tosi, and bang, and then straight into the path of Alex Velasco.
Yeah, I'm afraid she was Dr. Alison Cameron in House MD, wasn't she? She was just expecting everybody to be a little bit more sportsmanlike in that first corner. She was trying her hardest to make sure she had room in the middle, but once you put yourself in the dead center, you've got 2 eagers on either side of you. They're the ones that are going to take possession of the line, And unfortunately, she was just a little bit too philanthropic in that first move. If she'd have been a little bit hungrier and she would have stayed to the inside line, she could have forced everybody to the outside and had a few more cards on the table. So unfortunate. Nothing she did wrong there at all, but she just needed to be a little bit more forceful in where she placed her other competitors. If she held the inside line like wildfire, she would have had a few more options there and not get pinched on the way through.
Yep, and now Jace Larson has jumped all the way up from 6 on the grid, now runs P2 right on the rear of Cristian Ruiz, who's going to lead us across the line to complete the opening lap as we are using the RACC chicane. And there is Carlos Ruiz Padilla. He's got Chris Nauman, who has had a couple of dismal rounds to forget. There's Liam Habul and also Lucia Tosi, and that car has got absolutely no aerodynamics on the back of it. And I'm quite surprised that she hasn't had the mechanical black flag, because there's no aero, there's no rear bumper, there's no rear splitter. The exhaust is probably still on the outskirts of turn number 1 after she got hit up the rear from Fenson, who has no front bumper on that Merc. So again, Lucia Tosi has got to try and do what she can. And the thing is, I hate to think how skittish that car is going to be on the back end there, Jay, because we ride on board with Jace Larson in the number 1 McLaren.
Yeah, Tosi's definitely going to learn about car control the hard way. This is perfect, though, for Jace Larson. Currently finding himself now up to 2nd position, having originally started P6. So this is exactly where he wanted to be. He can now be the chaser on Cristian Ruiz. He doesn't really have to do a lot of hard work here. Just keep himself poised. Meanwhile, check out the battle for the GTD category as Carlos Ruiz Padilla is going at it with Nicholas Matthews, and this is going to be a fantastic squabble between the two of them. The two battlers for the title are now on track together, having an absolute squabble as Padilla holds off Chris Nauman. There is a little bit of daylight between himself and Matthews, but nothing that he has to panic about just yet in the early stages.
No, so already dramas within the first 3.5 minutes. As it looks like Daniel Pino is not going to take any further part. The connection issues plaguing the Chilean once again, I'm afraid. As Chris Nauman currently holding on to P3. We're right on board with a man who has been at the sharp end of the GTD side of things so far. He's being closed on by the number 34 BMW of Will Atom. Rounding out the top 5, Ken Clodin in the McLaren. In the number 6 with James Lambert in the number 54 Corvette, rounding out the top 6 in the class. But at the minute, yeah, Alejandro Tosi, looks like the Merc has got some real pace around here, especially through the straight line stuff, as Alejandro Tosi has just set the fastest lap of the race and has just put in a 1:48.569. We ride on board on from the cockpit side of things, so you can just hear that naturally aspirated 6.2 litre V8 Leviathan engine producing so much noise from the exhaust, and especially under that long front hood of the car. You can just see that Ruiz and Larson, I think in terms of if you want a car for handling around this circuit, you'd be more inclined to try for the McLaren here.
I mean, it is interesting how in the world of GT3 racing, the AMG has gone from being a little bit of a problem child to being the plug-and-play option for most teams, because it is a bit of an all-rounder nowadays. The first iteration did have a lot of difficulties in terms of handling, in terms of setup, in terms of balance. Now it's really a much more rounded car, and you can get a lot more out of it straight out of the box. It's almost like you can drive it straight off the production floor and go hell for leather. And Alejandro Tosi definitely in a more favoured position than he would have been at the start, because he was in a bit of a rock and a hard place going into turn 1 on the outside line. But unfortunately, it was Lucia that really caught the brunt of it through that first couple of corners, and he just kind of kept himself safe on that outside. I fancy the chances of Henry Fenson in this one as well, the Evolution Sim Sports driver from Sydney in Australia. He's got an opportunity here. He can follow these three. He can really study the lines they're taking. He can see how hungry they're being. He can look after his tyres a little bit more in the draft. Meanwhile, it looks as though we're going to get some variation of lines here. Larson fancying an opportunity to have a look, but not quite going for it yet. He doesn't need to make an overtake on Cristian Ruiz. He can sit behind him and let him make the mistake.
Yeah, very true. But the thing is that I'm wondering how much the loss of that front bumper is hampering Henry Fence's aerodynamics, because you need a car that's going to have a little bit of push down on the front end, despite the fact that Mercedes having the longest bonnets of any GT3 car known to man. But he's still giving chase to Alejandro Tosi, and Henry Fenson in the meantime actually has just posted the fastest lap at 48.155. So that damage to the front of his Merc in the number 10 Evolution Sports car, it is not actually slowing him down in the minute.
He's in good draft, isn't he? He's got the drivers in front of him exactly where he needs them to be. Meanwhile, there's the dive on the inside again from Ruiz, who's desperately trying to keep Naumann at bay. Naumann is not giving up and not conceding anything at this stage. You've got Will Atom in the mix there as well on the BMW, looking very hungry. We ride on board as they head into the RACC chicane once again. This is very tricky in a GT3 car. You've got to be so patient. And this takes months and months of practice. You can see just how unsettled the car can get. Chris Naumann finding out in a very difficult moment there, just when the weight transfer shifts as you go over those curbs, and it kicks the car up in the air by a couple of inches, and it really unsettles the balance. You're already committed to the radius that you've chosen through that particular part of the apex, and when it kicks you back out again, you've got to hope and pray that inertia is going to be on your side when you land.
Now, interesting thing here, folks. Lucia Tosi has made up places. Obviously, after being punted up the back, she is now up to effectively 22nd overall with no... I mean, if she can get that car back, initiate a fast repair whilst getting service, we're going to see probably a very... And look at this, she's got Gavin Canberra just in front of her, so there's a full-fledged 296 GT3, and there's one with aerodynamics that you would really want at something like the Nardo test track in Italy, because then at least you can really accelerate and get your top speed out of it. So Lucia Tosi, like you said, she's having to learn it the hard way, but here comes Jace Larson trying to look to the outside of Christian Louise as Liam Habul gets a black flag and a 75. That's a beautiful move by Jace Larson, takes the lead, and here comes Alejandro Tosi to try and get on the crisscross. Can he get through Christian Ruiz? Well, I think in some respects people might think he lucked into last week. Yes, he did, but the race he made it his own. But Jace Larson with a beautiful overtake before the RACC chicane. Jace, just watch your ping there, buddy. And let's have a look at this race. He sets it up nicely, goes for the crisscross here, Jake.
This is what I was talking about. He doesn't need to make the overtake. He just needs to wait for Ruiz to make the mistake. He pinned Ruiz so that he took the inside line. He braked early. He rolled off the power. Then he got back onto the throttle early, and he was able to get the perfect switcheroo. That's exactly how it should be done. Meatball flag, meanwhile, for Edouard Delano. So that's one car in trouble. Amazed that Lucia Tosi got away with it. But great to see that she's making up progress. There's the Mercedes of Liam Habul. He got the black flag, unfortunately. Delano in pit road as well, taking heed of the meatball flag, so he's obviously going to have to repair that car before he gets back out again. Coming back to Lucia Tosi, great to see the progress she's making, up to 19th now, having got ahead of Canberra, and obviously the other two cars coming in for their pit stops. But you're absolutely right, she's got pace, and now she's angry. She's not at Catalonia anymore, she's at Pamplona. She's on the bull run trying to go after these guys and try and make up places. So she is not going to be a driver to be trifled with. If anybody comes near her again, she's not going to give anybody any quarter at all.
Definitely she's seeing the Pamplona red mist and has got the elbows out and is fired up. In the meantime, Daniel Pino is moving up the order. Obviously, connection issues for the Chilean, but he's just put in the fastest lap of the race, a 1:47.938, and he is now up to 15th overall, chasing down James Lambert in the number 54. Oh, we love a good Rexy showing on a Porsche these days, and Lambert is going to let Pino through very soon if he can, and there he goes, the Chilean to the outside, and will now start going after his next victim, which will be Edgardo Gomez in the Sol Acura. Gavin Cambrai has just been given the black flag. That's going to be for incident points, so, and that is server driven, so the Ferrari is going to have to serve his serve what I like to call, well, what I've ended up calling the trundle of shame down the pit lane. In other words, a drive-through penalty.
On board again with Benson. This top four really is fascinating to watch. We've already seen Ruiz make the first critical error of the battle, and essentially he kind of fell for Larsson's trickery, didn't he? He knew he had to defend to the inside line, but he really needed to protect the inside. Once you've chosen that you're going to go on that inside line, you really should know that a crossover is coming. You need to know that that's what's going to happen. As Nicolas Lanciers does pick up the black flag, so that's unfortunate, and that puts him out of contention. But the trick of trying to deny the crossover is if you protect the inside line, you know your car's going to kick out to the outside. So you've got to slow the rotation down on the inside line for the next apex and hold that inside. You've got to be able to anticipate what your opponent is going to do. If you're going to defend to the inside line, you know that a crossover is coming, so you've got to anticipate it.
It's 3 wide just in front of Jason Blaine as Ken Clodin trying to go around the outside of Donald Powell, and Jason Blaine spins it.
So easily done, just a little bit too eager on the throttle pedal when you know you've got 2 or 3 cars in front of you. Clodin doing exactly what he needs to do to keep the car present and honest on the inside of that apex. But this is where all the mistakes come in. Look at the options and the variations of line from Atom. He's trying to outsmart his opponents, and he's gone, he's spun. Atom spun into the barriers at the final turn.
Oh, more dramas. This time for the 34. Itamar Lemler from Israel has just been given the black flag. We've got another meatball flag as well, as Chris Nauman to the inside of Carlos Ruiz Padilla. And the man from Cabo Rojo gets a little bit sideways through out of turn number 1. And, oh dearie me, you can just see how snaky the back end of that BMW was. As still the track temperatures are incredibly high. We're actually down a few degrees centigrade, a few degrees Fahrenheit. We were at 127. We're now at 124. So let's have a look. This is Itamar Lemler. Well, the front end's seen better days. Through into turn 1, is going to apply the power, and he just stops on the track, and he's just called it quits there.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? When you know that you're basically repeating the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. Here's the Atom moment, and that's how it happened. He actually got nudged. He actually got tipped into that spin, so no harm there for Will Atom. It certainly wasn't his incident as it was, and then because of his position in the pit lane entry, he had to then execute a 73-point turn, essentially, to try and get himself back again. Here's Nauman. The back end of that car is still traveling all over the place as he's doing the dance of death with the BMW. This is fabulous to watch. Nauman is just so determined. You want to see him get a little bit of a sniff of a move, because nobody has been more determined to pull off an overtaking move in this race so far than Chris Nauman.
Yeah, also look at Pino in the 477. His scythe is sharper than Getafix the Druid out of Asterix and Obelix back in the day. He's up to 11th position from a disconnect that put him into pit road, and the Chilean is absolutely flying. Alejandro Tosi, in the meantime, in P3, new fastest lap of the race is Edgardo Gomez. In the number 37, the man from Monterey, California, proudly representing Mexico, currently sitting in P12 overall, which puts him 7th in the GTD class, as Larsson, Ruiz, Tosi and Fenton are still inseparable. It's like you can put a piece of A5 paper and you've still got more room to spare for more cars underneath.
Do wonder where this big move is going to come from Daniel Nauman. The difficulty is that BMW is a hard car to get around. It is big, it is bulky, it is brutal, and it's got such a waft of power. But not only the power makes the BMW such a good car, it's the torque coming off the corner. It's such a difficult one for the Porsche to overhaul. He's got to hope that it's driver error really that guides him around. Oh, somebody off the road on the far side there on the run down to the 3rd sector.
Oh, right, okay, that looked like a Porsche to me. It might have been Lanciers there in the 51, yeah. And that front end has seen better days. There's a bit of damage to that. Let's have a look. So, on to the Racer Nexus replay.
Oh, yeah.
Turned, gravel.
On the circuit as well.
And Sonic goes for a spin.
Yeah, fastest corner on the circuit, Alex, and that's never easy when it just goes slightly awry. The problem is, once it spits you out and you go wide onto that gravel, there's no getting out of it. I mean, even if you back off the throttle in a GT3 car, it's only going to bury you. You've got to keep your foot planted in order to get out of the gravel again, and then it pitches you round. That was never going to be anything other than an accident, unfortunately, for Lanciers. He finds out in the worst possible fashion that this place really can bite if you lapse in concentration, even for a moment.
Yeah, as our leaders are about to come and lap Alex Velasco, who is all the way down in 21st position. Of course, he was caught up in that turn 1 incident. And where is Lucia Tosi at the moment? Running 16th, so she's only 5. You know what? I mean, we're seeing 2 massive comeback drives from the person that put it on pole position and the person that put it on the outside of the front row, both having a completely different set of circumstances. And if you said you'd write a script about this, take it into Don Simpson and Jerry Bruckheimer, they'd probably laugh at you, rip the script up and throw it back in your face.
I think even Simpson and Galton would have laughed in your face at that one, and they're comedy writers. I'm not entirely sure they would have thought that was believable. James Lambert still having a decent run, P12, but he's already been overtaken by that man Dan Pino, so that shows you the progress that the Good Smile High Point Racing Mercedes is making in this one. His next target is going to be Jason Blaine. There is the Good Smile Mercedes. I've always loved this livery out in Japan, and great to see that it's here tonight as ever. And look at the pace that Pino's got. That's the thing. Once you've got a sim racer who feels hard done by, he feels like he's had his best opportunity taken away from him. Woe betide anybody that tries to come between them and a decent result, because it is relentless pace. You seem to find that little bit extra. I've been there when I've been racing on Super Touring on various different things in the past. You get this hunger and something comes out of you, something a little bit more than thirst comes out of you, and you find something that just, it concentrates you, it sharpens your focus, and you're able to get a little bit more out of yourself.
Yeah, it's like you get this sort of kick up the backside, I think is the terminology I would use, where you just sort of, you go, well, look, I've got to dust myself off, pick myself back up, and just see what I can make of the situation. And both Pino and Tosi are doing great stuff, as here is Jason Blaine, and also you've got just in front Donald Powell in the 86 Corvette, and that is that's 10th place that Pino is now going for overall, picture in picture, whereas Larson still being pressured from behind courtesy of Christian Ruiz, winner at Canada last week. But again, it's just, there are just so many twists and turns in every single race. As Pino gets through on Jason Blaine, Blaine doesn't fight it. He knows that his race is not against him, but he's still wanting to charge at the Chilean, the man from Osorno, in the 477. As we cross the line to complete lap 11, 40 minutes still to go, as we're 10 minutes from half time. And again, just seeing how good the quality of the racing has been so far in the HPR GT World Challenge. Don't forget, folks, you can also watch the IMSA series on Thursday nights as well. So season 5 for that, season 9 for GT World Challenge, as Donald Powell being challenged by being challenged by Dan Pino, and Ken Clodin is about 5 seconds up the road. So if Pino clears Powell, he's got clear track ahead of him to start pushing. Excuse me there.
So Larson, Ruiz, Tosi, Fenson, and it's so difficult to know through the pit stops which of the 4 of them is actually going to have the upper hand. 3 Mercs and a McLaren, and very difficult to tell who's going to have the raw pace. And how much more of an impact can Dan Pino actually have in the second stage of the race in GTD Pro as well. How much more of an impact will he be able to make? That is a critical point. And don't forget, there's still going to be decent points on the board for Lucia Tosi if she just keeps it on out there. Currently looking only at P6 in the class. That's not where she wants to be at all, but anything could still happen in this race. All you've got to wait for is a moment between Ruiz and Tosi, or Tosi and Fenson, or Fenson and Larson, Larson and Ruiz. Anything can happen with those four up front.
Yep, Gavin Cambry now pits in with just over 38 minutes remaining on the timer. And that's probably for, that front end has seen better days. So we've got Cambry with a missing front end, Lucia Tosi with the missing rear end.
Oh, so too much power.
And that is going to smart and bang straight away.
Yeah.
Goodbye bumper. Hello, no aerodynamics on the front.
Too much power too early into turn 5, and that is now a Ferrari 296 Mad Max edition. What a shame for Canberra. That is not what you need at all. And it's so easy. I have done that spin on that corner so many times in my early days, because you just get so impatient waiting for the car to rotate. You get a little bit of throttle and you think, just a dash more throttle will cure this and it'll turn me in. Oh, and up the inside, that's going to be a very late chance for Ruiz. I think he suddenly realised late braking, he has to commit to the overtake, and he's going to go side by side with Larson. Is that going to be enough as they go up to the next hill rotation? He's done that. That is very impressive from Ruiz. I think that was a last-minute braking manoeuvre that went slightly awry, and he's been able to turn that into a very committed move around the outside. Larson gets it back. That is sweet as a dandy.
Yeah, and that just goes to show how much the margins are in terms of being so finite here at Barcelona. And Ruiz again in that Mercedes, just trying to see if he can get through.
That's how you shut down the crossover. If you saw what happened earlier on with Ruiz making sure that he defended the inside line and then giving it away on the exit, you just saw the reverse of it there from Larson. I want to see a replay of that if we can, because that is the perfect textbook way how you stop the crossover from happening. Look, so Larson gets it around the outside. Beautiful move. Now watch, he's going to defend the inside line here. This is crossover territory, but watch what he does when he gets there. He holds the inside line, and look, he slows the car right down. There's no way through on the inside line there for Ruiz. That's the perfect example of how you stop the switcheroo.
Yeah, just parks it on the racing line and just thinks, okay, yep, Mr. Ruiz, you've got to do a lot better than that to get past me, as we are 6 minutes away from half-time. And once again, Christian Ruiz trying to force the window of opportunity to come his way in the number 7 Mercedes-Benz, as he might look for the inside here on Larson, and he's got to the inside line. This time he's going to try and get through. Larson still hanging around the outside, and this time Christian Ruiz gets through and takes the race lead. Beautiful exchange between the pair, but Larson isn't done yet. And Alejandro Tosi is waiting in the rafters to take his opportunity if something ahead goes awry.
Yeah, Tosi's in the box seat, and he knows that the gloves are off between the two men in front. He knows that something could go wrong here, and he is primed and ready. He needs to stay close, but he doesn't want to get drawn too close to these two, just in case there's a little bit of a ricochet effect in any incident that might occur. And look who's behind them, enjoying the quartet battle as well. This is a nice little run behind from the Mercedes at the back of the queue as well. You've got Fenson obviously closing in on the top 3 and enjoying the draft, albeit a lap down, enjoying himself there at the back of this train just because he's enjoying being behind the leaders. That's the blue and black Mercedes in the very tail end. So just trying to see how things are going to continue to work through. Ruiz, just getting a little bit of a kick out in that final corner, and Larson was tucked in with him. Now look at Fenson. Fenson's got the draft on Tosi, so this is going to have multiple chapters to this one move.
And all the while, this is just making things look that little bit more enthralling before the pit stop phase. As now, right, Daniel Pino has pitted. Pino was pitted, so I think maybe he's decided, go for an earlier strategy, see what he can do from there. And if he takes tyres, because It's still roasting out there, 124 degrees Fahrenheit. That's about 45 degrees track temp set in Celsius. As there we see Big Nick Matthews from Lunatic Racing being chased down by the HPR BMW M4. Carlos Ruiz Padilla looking for another win and to hopefully keep his campaign for the GTD title on track. You can just see how well that BMW is proving itself. It's basically, you said about the Mercedes-AMG GT3 Evo being plug and play. I would say your best all-rounder, and that's why a certain Valentino Rossi drives one of these. It is the customary all-rounder. It's got a good mix of power, good mix of handling ability, and it's pretty torquey out of the corners.
Yeah, the torque is what really gives the BMW its secret weapon. Looking at the way that this stint has kind of unraveled, I would say that in the pit stops, you kind of really need to go for a set of tires. I mean, normally you could kind of take a gamble and just see how far the tires will go. But you can see the leaders now starting to make those errors. You can see a couple of kickouts to the curb and run wides. The high humidity, the low humidity is and the high temperatures is what's definitely giving the tires that extended pressure. And I just think that if you're going to roll the dice, you need to take tires ultimately. Tosi's decided to pit, so he's the first of the big four. Now, if it's me and it's my call, I'm taking tires. I'm not running the risk of the drop-off, because the drop-off here in these high temperatures, in this low humidity, will be gargantuan. You've got to think about for the greater good. Yes, you're going to lose time in the pit stops by taking tires, but the gain you're going to make in the second half of the race is going to be huge if you take the tires. So if it was me, I think I would take 2 steps back to go 3 steps forward.
Yep, Alejandro Tosi has just come out of pit lane, 17.5 seconds on his marks with the car being serviced. And that makes him rejoin in what will be 8th overall. Lucia Tosi, she's now in the pits. So hopefully, once that car is all sorted out, and has a rear diffuser, rear bumper, and also a rear wing on it, but for her to get the car as far as she has is a Herculean feat in its own right. But we are... Oh, and Nicolas Lancier's black flag for the number 51, I'm afraid. As Gavin Cambry, that front end looks like it's had more than just a nip and a tuck, to coin a phrase. He's been in for 2 3/4 minutes, plus the additional tow that he might have had. But Padilla closing in on Big Nick. Nick Matthews is going to have to make the haunches of the rear of that Porsche as wide as humanly possible, as this is the battle not just for the GTD lead, it's also for P4. Mistake from Matthews over the chicane. Ruiz Padilla to the inside as Vincent pits, and Padilla across the line is not going to get the launch out of the final corner. Matthews able to get that flat four screaming on all cylinders at high revs and high velocity, keeps the race lead for GTD. And with Fencer now pitting, the battle for GTD becomes the overall battle for 3rd.
There's the respect between the two drivers battling for the GTD lead, though, because a more gutsy driver, perhaps a more rude driver, would probably have just stuck it to the inside line on throttle and said, right, I'm just going to make sure this corner is mine. But they left each other the space. They gave each other a little bit of leeway, and that is the difference between a great racer and a fair racer. You've got two drivers there who are going to leave their biggest battles until later. You don't want to get into the wars too early. If you want to be a bit more aggressive, okay, leave it for the last 5 minutes. At this stage, you've got to make sure the car is still in one piece. You've got to look after tyres, you've got to look after brakes, you've got to look after the bodywork. Everything's got to be a percentage. If this was a shorter sprint race, then yes, you'd have been a little bit more aggro. But these two know that they've got a long way to go still, half an hour left, and you do not push it to the ragged edge until you absolutely have to. Maturity from both, but big launch on the inside from Padilla. He now knows that there's a chance. So Ruiz Padilla gets that move. That was a little bit hesitant, and he's going to give away 2 places if he's not careful.
Oh,
he hasn't now, but there was a little bit of a nudge.
Oi, Nauman gets through, and that is a big old change. And as that happens, well, I'm going to quickly run through the sponsors. Our title sponsor of the HPR GT World Challenge for Season 9, Hymo Setups, providing professional sim racing setups used by HPR drivers and helps to elevate the standard of racing across all classes. Monster Designs, as Nick Matthews now pits. Monster Designs provide custom race liveries, professional designs and branding for drivers and teams. And then, of course, our good friends at Admin Box, broadcast and operational support, helps with race control, supports league operations and structures by its organisational tools that it has. Right, time for a quick top 5 rundown. So, Christian Ruiz now leads overall in the race, ahead of Jace Larson in the number 1 McLaren. Then we have to go all the way down to Henry Fenson, who is now down in 7th position, and with a freshly repaired Evolution Sim Sports Mercedes, rounds out the top 3 in the class, ahead of Alejandro Tosi as in 8th place overall. And then it is the recovering Chilean driver Daniel Pino, who is right behind the 666 car of Edward Delano. And Pino currently rounds out the top 5. Jake, how are things looking in GTD?
Certainly looks good at the moment between the battle for Padilla and Naumann, because we've just had a pit stop from Big Nick. So Carlos Ruiz Padilla leading the way in GTD from Chris Naumann. Kenneth Clodin in the Ecto 1 McLaren, 3rd position, still looking strong in front of Donald Powell in the Corvette. And then we've got Edgardo Gomez, the Mexican, for GT Tech in front of Nicholas Matthews, first of the big guns to pit. Thomas King in the Ferrari, P7 at the present moment in front of Matthew Mitchell. And then Lambert and Blaine, Porsche versus McLaren for the top 10. Will Atom still going strong in the BMW, not where he wants to be, but certainly still in the game. And then LaFranca and Henry rounding out the field in GTD GTD at the moment. Eduardo Delano is at the back of the queue at the High Point Mercedes. Only 2 non-runners at the moment, Lanciers and Drake. And so those 2 running, 4 in GTD. Lanciers, Drake, Canberra and Habul, after Itamar Elimele has also retired in the pro category. But this is still a fascinating run. The big news story from the first part of the pit stops is that we've had Fenson and Tosi come in, and Fenson jumped Tosi quite dramatically there, Alex. He's gained about 4 seconds in the pit stops. Now, is that tyres or is that a mistake from Alejandro Tosi?
I think it's pit stop time here, Jake, because it was 15.98 seconds. And Henry Fenson, the man from Sydney, Australia, gained a 1.5 seconds on Alejandro Tosi. So that's where the differential has helped. Plus also, it's 60 kilometers an hour is the speed limit, first gear. And you do not want to incur the server, because as soon as you do that, you speed in the pit lane, you cross over the white line on exit. That is a slam dunk drive through, as Jason Blaine right up close and personal on the brakes to the back of James Lambert. Edgardo Gomez and Thomas King have just got into the pits. Now they have just taken the longest pit stops so far this race, as in standard service, and that is 27.3 seconds Edgardo Gomez, Thomas King 28.7, which says to me, I think tyres might have been taken.
Looks that way, doesn't it? Kenneth Clodin still having this lovely little duel with the BMW of the Canadian Matthew Mitchell. Trying to find a little bit more. You can start to see on the side of the circuit is now where those mistakes have been made by the other drivers, where the gravel is starting to build up on certain corners. And that's going to be fascinating for the drivers who do decide to take this set of tyres to the ragged edge, because the last thing you want to do is put too much pressure on them. That's the reason I said earlier I'd be taking tyres. You just don't want to leave punctures to the big high-end chance. If you're going to throw the dice, you've got to make sure you don't come up with snake eyes on the first roll. Here's the move on the inside line. That's Blaine. Pops it up nicely there on Lambert. Nothing Rexy can do about that one. He still leaves enough space to play with, though, Jason Blaine. So very nicely executed. No worries at all about shutting the door across the bow of the Porsche. And that was very neat and tidy from Blaine.
Yeah, as Edward Delano in the iRacing initial D Mercedes comes through into the pit road. About Carlos Ruiz Padilla versus Chris Naumann. When you think about it, Chris Naumann took the opening win of the series back at Daytona And Carlos Ruiz Padilla is going to have to make the back end of that BMW M4 GT3 Evo as wide as humanly possible. He's got to be like Hale and Pace, being the management, the bouncers on the nightclub saying, if your name's not on the list, you ain't coming in. And at the moment, Nauman is trying to put the pressure on him at the minute, but the Puerto Rican is soaking it up like a sponge. And this is where we see so many pendulum swings, that one driver starts to get their elbows out, sees that little bit of red mist, thinks, yeah, I've got a chance here. And the driver in front is like saying, no, you're not getting past. It's not going to happen. I'm sorry.
Yet again, Chris Nauman going after Carlos Ruiz Padilla. These two had been joined at the hip since lap 3. And it is fascinating to see these guys still going at it, still eking out this stint as far as it'll go, until one of them's got to blink and go for the pit stop. And it's fascinating to see just how much variation there is in the trajectory of both of these two's races. There's Christian Ruiz, still leading in the class, gets through the traffic, no problem at all for him. Jace Larson still there or thereabouts. They're going quite long into the stint, I have to say, and it's going to be fascinating to see how much of a time they will have on Henry Fenson when they come out. Just trying to look at the gap. 38 seconds between Christian Ruiz and Henry Fenson at the moment. That's tight. It's going to be... Oh, and a big spin in the background. That's Nauman. Nauman's lost it coming out of the turn, and he pirouettes across. He's avoided contact with everything, and he should just get back on the road again. He's got to let the Ferrari go, but that was an amazing recovery from Chris Nauman, considering that could have been game over.
Yeah, let's have a look at the replay. Code Brown, clean up on aisle 3, and Nauman's had to bring the mop along with him to clean up the mess that he's left behind. Look at that. That has absolutely caused problems with the tyres. And, you know, there's no flat spotting in iRacing, but that is going to basically cook the tyres faster than a fried egg. And he's now going to have to think, well, okay, I've put way too much heat through the tyres. I've made a mistake whilst chasing down the race leader, as Christian Ruiz now pits. Jace Larson stays out. And the other thing is, will Carlos Ruiz Padilla come into pit lane? That's going to be the big question.
He does.
And he is. So I think we're getting to that point now. The temperature has dropped significantly enough. I think it's around about a 9-degree Fahrenheit drop. As Chris Nauman, let's see what his pit stop time is, because if that's more than 25 seconds, you know he's taken tyres. But I think it's going to be really, and it's now 48 degrees centigrade track temp, 30 degrees air temp, humidity still at 14%. And Jace Larson, I have to say here, Jake, he just looks really settled and comfortable. He's not overdriving the car. So from that perspective, you've got to wonder how long or how deep into the race, because obviously there's a fuel limitation these drivers have got to deal with. How far can Jace Larson really bridge that gap between himself and Henry Fenson, who pitted, let's be honest, 5 laps ago? And I'm just looking to see where Lucia Tosi pitted, lap 15, and she's now 14th at the moment. You can see that maybe through a couple of the slower speed corners like we see here on board, the back end looking a little bit on the ropey side when he's accelerating. You see that the steering wheel's twitching when he puts down the right foot to get the power down and get the traction out of the corners.
Fenson's ahead of Ruiz. That's the big one. Fenson managed to jump Ruiz in the pit stop. So now that Larson is coming in, it's almost guaranteed now that Henry Fenson, the man who was at the back of the quartet, don't forget, is going to be the man who emerges on the top. And that is sensational driving from Fenson. He has got on with the job quietly in the background. He was the first of the big guns to pit in, if you remember. So,
yeah.
Sorry, Tosi was, my apologies. Tosi was a lap before Fenson, but Fenson really used the fluidity and the rhythm. And you know what they say in the F1 movie, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And it's exactly how Fenson has got himself into this position. And Larson's going to be sat on pit road before he really gets the chance to come out of the turn. This is going to be tight on the exit. Fenson's going to have the power and the pace. Larson going short on the pit stop. That's the only reason he gets out in front of Henry Fenson. So he's realised, I'm not going to beat him out if I take tyres. So he's gone for a shorter pit stop. Fenson's the one with the advantage here. He took tyres earlier on. He's gained a lot of time on the other drivers around him. but Fenson now with a golden opportunity. Larson on cold tyres, he'll lose about 1.5 seconds perhaps on this outlap, but Fenson now with a chance to show the McLaren of Jace Larson what is possible. But of course, Larson is the championship leader. He knows how to cope with the pressure. He knows how to soak it up. He came from 6th on the grid. So if anyone's going to halt this charge, it's going to be the McLaren.
Yeah, but the other big thing now is the battle for P1 in the GTD side of things. Big Nick Matthews has got a little bit of an advantage over Carlos Ruiz Padilla. So Nick Matthews, 18 seconds in the pit lane. More to the point, Carlos Ruiz Padilla, he has taken tyres, 26.87 seconds, which has put him behind Dan Pino. Dan Pino now is P6 overall, pitted on lap number 14. So the Chilean has been thundering his way well and truly, thanks to the might of the Affalterbach powered machine that he's that is his chariot at the moment. He is flying around this circuit like nobody's business, but it's not going to be enough for him to be in the top 3. But still, for a damage limitation comeback drive, absolutely mighty work by the 477 Good Smile Mercedes.
Yeah, you can't fault him, can you? I mean, his last lap was a 1:48.9. So he's still got plenty of pace at this stage of the race. It's just such a shame that we haven't really seen him at full strength of late because of the connection issues he's been dealing with. So if we hope, you know, we can hope that he gets that sorted before the end of the season so we can really see what he's capable of. We know that this guy has got race win written all over him. But unfortunately, it's been the difficulties, the technical maladies that have kept him out of the front row and kept him out of the top spot. Right, Carlos Ruiz Padilla with Donald Powell on the hunt now. That spin from Chris Nauman really has cost him because he's now dropped out of the top 3 after the pit stops. And this is a great run from Powell, who's making good use of this in the Corvette, the lone Corvette in the field. So obviously a lot of pride at stake here for Donald Powell. He's got good potential here, and he's actually a lot closer to Carlos Ruiz Padilla than I would have given him credit for at the start. So he's really made this middle section of the race work for him. He's got 16 minutes. He's got the BMW in his sights. What can he do with it?
Yeah, the man from Sturgis really showed good account of himself last week at Canada. So who knows? The unpredictability factor is up in the air. It's been an unpredictable race so far since we went green over 43.5 minutes ago. Now get this, Jace Larson, there is, in the words of Street Fighter 2, there is, here comes a new challenger, because Henry Fenson is absolutely on the move, and there's the man from Evolution Sim Sports from Sydney, Australia, and he's last time round he put in a 47.213, and he's 1.3 seconds behind. So with 16 minutes to go, here comes the new challenger, Fenson versus Larson for the overall race victory here at the Circuit de Barcelona, Catalunya for round 6, season 9, round 5, season 9, HPR GT World Challenge in the Montmeló region of Spain. And Fenson on his last lap was over 1/10 and a half quicker than the man in front. The gap now down to 1.2. Fenson chasing down Larson. It's game on.
It's a stunning drive from Henry Fenson, isn't it? To go from the back of the quartet to suddenly move his way up in such a fluid and in such a calm manner. He's been very, very focused, and look, he's now brought it to almost a second of Larson, and that's the difference between a fresh set of tyres at the pit stop and keeping it out there, because you've got to keep track position. Larson is going to have such a tough job here, but Fenson's getting a little bit hungry. You can see he's starting to make those little errors. He's getting close. He can taste the victory, but he wants it all now. He's got to be focused. You've got to spend 10 minutes chipping away at Larson's advantage, then be on his rear splitter in the last 4 minutes. It's a game of two halves, this battle. You've got to spend 10 minutes reeling him in. You can't get it all done at once.
It's like having a meal in an Italian restaurant. You know, you've got to make sure that you have the antipasta first before you go on for the main course, and then have the, you know, your choice of dessert. Maybe it might be a tiramisu finished off with an espresso at the end of the night. But Fenson has got to work his way, like you rightly put there. and he has lost a little bit of time, but Christian Ruiz is coming back into the fray, and he is also chasing, and he just took a second out of Henry Fenton. And you can now see that Mercedes power could best the might of Woking here at this particular point, as we are now on lap 26 with 14 minutes to go. The chase is on. It's a bit like Cannonball Run with Burt Reynolds and Dom DeLuise, Sammy Davis Jr. and Dean Martin back in the day. But there are no comedies here, folks. It is all seriousness. Everyone is out for victory.
Yes, it's a comedy of errors as we get closer to the finish line. We're hoping it's not going to be that way. Fenton still only a second back from Jace Larson. Traffic could be quite critical here, but Fenton certainly going straight at it. 2 tyres only for Fenton and Larson, actually. I thought it was going to be all 4 for Fenton, but they both took 2 tyres. That just magnifies how good a job Fenton's actually done. That wasn't gained in the pits. That was gained on the track for Fenton. He pitted early, knuckled down, having beaten Alejandro Tosi out of the pits. That was the catalyst. He suddenly realized, right, I don't have to worry about the 2 guys in front of me anymore because I'm a long way back. I can chip away at Ruiz, I can chip away at Larson. It just demonstrates how much stronger in this race Fenton has been. But don't count Christian Ruiz out yet. He's only 4 seconds back from Larson. He's not out of this by a long way. If he can just keep the fluidity in his own last 12 minutes, then there's every chance he could come back. He just needs to iron out those difficulties, those errors that we just saw there going up the hill. If he can just keep it nice and steady, nice and focused, there's every chance that he's still in this.
I'm also going to bring to your attention the battle for GTD. Reference the race lead there. Big Nick Matthews, is currently running in P5 overall in the 55 Porsche. The man from Charlotte, North Carolina. Well, he is losing time to Carlos Ruiz Padilla, who took nearly 27 seconds in the pit lane, which means to me it is all 4 tyres that went on the BMW. Now, you look at the head-to-head, 8.8 seconds, and look, lap 25, Ruiz Padilla took nearly 0.8 of a second out of him, and so I think that it's going to be a potential of a mere formality, not if, but when, in the next 11 minutes and 40 seconds, does Carlos Ruiz Padilla close on in. I mean, it's, people might say, yes, it's going to be a big old distance, but if Ruiz has got a lot of fresh rubber still to play with and keeping it in that optimum window, and look, you can see the man from Cabo Rojo quickly on the flashes as if to say, look, get out of my way, I'm not battling you, I'm gunning for the race leader.
Right, for those people who were wondering what's the difference between GTD Pro and GTD in sim racing, you saw it on that previous graphic. The difference between the strategies in the pits between the leaders in GTD Pro and GTD. The guys up front in GTD, both taking 2 tyres. Larson, Fenton, probably Ruiz as well, I would think. Everyone in GTD, 4 tyres. That's the big difference. You don't take those risks in GTD. In GTD Pro, you've got a little bit more experience. You've got that little bit more knowledge of how to make the tyres go that little bit further. And you can afford to take that gamble perhaps a little bit more. You can have a bit more faith in your own exuberance, a faith in more your ability. What's happened here? Fenton's in front of Larson. Larson's in front. What happened? He's caught him up. He's reined him in. And now he's going to get his opportunity. Is there contact? There was contact, and Larson's gone out wide.
I mean, yeah, you were right in what you said about Fenton, that he's, but the thing is, okay, you're just going to see it from the helicam shot there. There's the contact, and bang, wobble and a half for Jace Larson, and that has put him straight.
He'll be fuming at that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the thing is that there's a phrase that there's that sign of desperation, and then there's the sign of urgency. And I think with Fenton, a little bit of desperation crept in here, whereas Christian Ruiz, like we saw in the battle with Jace Larson a little bit earlier on, there is the sense of urgency. He now knows that with 9 3/4 minutes to go, he's got to get through on Jace Larson. But what he won't want to do is to have exactly the same thing happen, as long as he doesn't have to check up behind Larson in the McLaren with that 4-litre twin-turbo M840 McLaren, and that's not where you want the ping to start going wrong there, because that's going to confuse the hell out of Christian Ruiz. Ruiz to the inside this time, and is going to have to get, well, there we go. Christian Ruiz now second. He's got clear air of 1.4 seconds to go chasing after the man from Sydney, Australia, as Henry Fenson from Evolution Sim Sports in the number 10 Merc now leads with 9 minutes to go. And Jace Larson's got a meatball flag. I don't believe it.
Oh, he's got some damage there. I wonder if that was from the contact with Fenson or whether that was something else. But I'm not so sure about how that started. Fenson, that incident, I think that was just a roll off the power from Jace Larson. I don't think that was Fenson getting a little bit eager. I think that was just Fenson wasn't expecting to suddenly find the tail of his Mercedes in the nose of his Mercedes, the tail of the McLaren in the nose of the Mercedes. I don't think he was expecting that much of a drop-off in that corner. So I'm not so sure that was eager from Fenson. I think that was difficulty for Larson. I think that's where that started. He might have picked up some problems there. So big difficulty. Right. So Larson's got a connection issue. That's why he's been given the meatball flag. The ping is too high. So I wonder if that's the reason why Fenson nudged him, because I think the ping might have just held up Larson a little bit. And now look, gloves are off between these two Mercedes up front. It's a real shame for Larson, because that really hampers his title attack. It's even put Lucia Tosi in front of Larson. That's how disastrous it is now for the McLaren, who's been fighting so long. But connection issues for him as well. Now it's going to be Fenson versus Ruiz, as now Thomas King gets the meatball flag.
Well, it just goes to show towards the tail end of a race, so Christian Ruiz has to dive to the inside right at the last moment and gets through. That was on the number 69 car, I believe, Matthew Mitchell, the Canadian. So I'm not at all surprised with regards to what happened with regards to Jace Larson there. And that has really hit hard on the championship leader. But now it is an all Mercedes battle in the top. Well, it looks like it's going to be an all Merc top three. And more to the point, well, Jace Larson being shown the meatball flag. It's gone from hero to zero for the number 1 McLaren 720S GT3. But here we go. It is down to the last 7 minutes. And with running with around about a 1:48, let's put it that way, we're probably looking, I would say, maybe at about another 4 to 5 laps at a push here, as Big Nicholas Matthews, 4th overall in the Lunatic Racing Adrenaline Motorsports Porsche 992 GT3R Evo. He is currently leading the way by a comfortable margin over Carlos Ruiz Padilla, and that gap is shortening. Padilla, the man from Cabo Rojo in Puerto Rico, did put all 4 new tyres on that car. It looks like the temperature on the track is actually rising again, Jake. We're up to 119 degrees Fahrenheit, which is just under 50 degrees Celsius. So the man from HPR Racing, High Point Racing, the overlord of the leagues for not just GT World Challenge, but also for the IMSA series, which is also here on Racer Nexus Thursday nights at the minute, and that's been a rather interesting series as well to boot. But look at this, Christian Ruiz now has got in his crosshairs the man from Sydney, Australia, as Evolution Sim Sports number 10, Henry Fenson, is now going to have to fend off the might and sheer aggressive overtaking, attacking of Ruiz, who's trying to look through at the chicane, and he gets a black flag. He's got a black flag as well now. Ruiz is going to have to serve through.
Well, what did we say? Anything can happen in this category. Anything can happen at this level. I think it's the fact that he was given the black flag. It just put him off. He was given it at pretty much the exact moment he was hustling behind Fenson. Here's the move. He suddenly realizes what's happening. He braked initially. Did you see that? He braked initially on the approach to the corner. I'd love to see that from another angle. He braked initially.
I think there was a little bit of a touch as well. The slightest kiss on the rear bumper.
What happens though, look, now watch, he brakes initially. So this is where he gets the command. Look, there's the brake. He brakes, then backs back on the power, and that's where he nudges Fenson. So there was an initial point of braking there from Ruiz, and that tells me that wasn't him hitting Fenson. That was him getting the call that he was going to get the black flag. and it just put him off. It just elapsed in concentration because he realized he was getting the black flag. And it was one of those split-second moments there from Ruiz. But you can see he initially brakes earlier than Fenton. He had no intention of hitting him there.
So Henry Fenton is on course to becoming a new race winner here in the GTD Pro side of things. Meantime, Big Nick Matthews, still running in P4 at the moment. Now the thing is that Christian Ruiz might decide if he does not want to serve the drive-through penalty, he will get an automatic time penalty, which is around about 30 to 35 seconds post-race. That'll be added onto his time.
Didn't he already serve it? He's now 21 seconds back from Fenton, so I think he's already served it.
He's still on track. The thing is that with that sphere, put him right in front of Tozy, so he hasn't. Otherwise, that would show up as another trip down pit lane, even if he doesn't stop. So Ruiz,
right.
That's going to basically put him P3 anyway. So he's now he's going to serve it.
Right.
He is going to serve it now. So Christian Ruiz is going to have to go on the speed limiter. So that is going to be pit stop number 2, and a unwelcome one.
Well, get this, Pino is going to be promoted to 3rd position. Can you believe Daniel Pino is going to be on the podium here?
And the Chilean has to quickly get out of, and what he's doing is he's releasing get this, Carlos Ruiz Padilla. And what does that mean? 3.9 seconds separates the man from Puerto Rico to the man from the land of the stars and stripes. We've got a race on our hands here. And if Carlos Ruiz Padilla can close up that gap to Nick Matthews, who is now ahead of Alejandro Tozy. Oh my days, Nick Matthews is now P2 overall with 2 minutes and 20 left on the clock.
Let's have a look at what happened from Nick Matthews. This is awesome, isn't it?
Well, Tozy just opens the door uncharacteristically. Matthews goes, thank you very much, I'll take that every single day of the week, and go straight down to the bank for that one. And now that means that Carlos Ruiz Padilla, get this, Nick Matthews, 149.9, last lap by Carlos Ruiz Padilla. He's charging forward, 148.1. 1.8 seconds is what the man from Puerto Rico has taken out of Big Nick. And look, there they are in the same shot. And we have the white flag lap coming out now. 32 laps completed. One more lap to go for Henry Fenton. But can Carlos Ruiz Padilla close up that gap? It's got to be an absolutely monumental final lap from the man from Puerto Rico, from Cabo Roja. But can he make it work as they go through the RACC chicane? It's going to be tough, but you know what? Carlos Ruiz Padilla is a man that never gives up. He's going to give it a go. They come out of the final corner. They go onto the white flag lap. He's going to get a bit of slipstream now from Alejandro Tozy, and that is going to help close the gap, but he's a bit too far away at the moment. But it's when we get that torque delivery coming out of the corners, that is where the advantage of the BMW is going to help the number 14.
And this is, for me, why Tozy got out of the way, because he doesn't have to battle with Matthews and Ruiz. There's no percentage in him battling away with them. Look, he gets right out of the way. You guys have it. It's fine. You guys are racing your own race. I'm still going to get second in GTD Pro. I'm not going to risk that. I know he's got Pino bearing down on him, but there's no way that Pino is going to catch him in time. So it just makes sense. Look, you guys just have your fun. You go and play. I'm going to settle for second place. But the man up front, Henry Fenton, he was at the back of the quartet on the first stint. The way he has turned this race around and become victorious, hopefully in the next few seconds, what a drive. Absolutely stunning. Bonza.
Yep. And Henry Fenton, the man from a land down under, is going to make his own bit of history. He comes through the RACC chicane, and a different winner emerges, and he'll pick up a 1-month HIMO subscription. Henry Fenton from Evolution Sim Sports, the number 10, started on the inside of row number 3. He powers out of the final corner. Fenton wins round 5 here at Barcelona. But Nick Matthews, is he going to be able to hold on? Carlos Ruiz Padilla is chasing him down. As look at that, the gap is 1.4 seconds. but Nick Matthews, Big Nick for Lunatic Racing Adrenaline Motorsports. It's not just going to be second overall, but Nick Matthews, he's going to come out of the final chicane. Carlos Ruiz-Padilla is going to chase him down the gap, down to 9/10 of a second through the final corner. Nick Matthews, Big Nick, wins GTD and takes second overall. Ruiz-Padilla rounds out the overall top three and takes second in the class. Alejandro Tosi takes P4 overall. And how about this for a drive? Dan Pino, from absolutely nowhere, qualified on the outside of the front row, comes across the line P5. Take a bow, good sir. The man from Chile rounds out the podium. And what's more, Donald Powell hits the podium once again, as we've got a battle here between James Lambert and Rexy. And it's also going to be Jason Blaine, the man running full VR. They're going to be coming out of the final corner. And Lambert is going to take 9th overall, which is going to basically be P6 in the GTD side of things. Blaine takes 7th in the class. And look at this, Lucia Tosi, from being punted up the back end on lap 1, turn 1, she recovers to finish P4 in GTD Pro, 11th overall.
Yeah, fair play to Lucia Tosi. Very good run from Dan Pino as well. Amazing that those guys were able to get what they got out of the race there. But from Henry Fenson, that's one of the strongest drives I've seen in esports for such a long time. You got to feel for Christian Ruiz. He'll be bitterly disappointed, but then so too will Chase Larson. So too will Alejandro Tosi, I think, because they all had a chance to take on Fenson. All four of them were very evenly matched in the early stages, but only Fenson had the staying power for the entirety of the race to keep it together. Very interesting stuff. And I keep saying it, Catalunya is amazing for sim racing. It's a perfect track to give you real entertainment. You get so much out of this place. Henry Fenson, though, very deserving of that win. Really worked hard to get there. Was smooth and calm and patient throughout.
So, after 33 laps here at round 5, season 9 of the High Point Racing GT World Challenge, it is Australia that hits the top step of the podium. Henry Fenson from Evolution Sim Sports, leading 7 laps, picked up the fastest lap of the race of a 1:47.213, is tonight's winner. And what's more, it's an all-Falterbach top 3. Alejandro Tosi and Daniel Pino rounding out the top 3 in the class. Great comeback drive by Galaxy Team Esports Ferrari driver Lucia Tosi. P4 overall, disaster right to the dying moments for Christian Ruiz, who finishes 5th ahead of Alex Velasco. Jace Larson and Itamar Elemle retiring very early on in the race. Jake, take us through GTD.
Well, it was Nicholas Matthews really getting the job done in fine style. Couple more laps and Carlos Ruiz-Padilla might have been able to get something done about that. Donald Powell, though, very strong from the Corvette in 3rd position. Great to see the brand in the top 3. Chris Naumann from Kenneth Clodin and James Lambert. Jason Blaine, the VR man, P7 in front of Will Atten. And then Matthew Mitchell ahead of David Henry. Then we had Edgardo Gomez in front of Philip DeFranca, and then the lower down drivers, Edward Delano and Jim Drake getting across the line. The men who didn't, Thomas King, Nicholas Lancius, Gavin Camber and Liam Hubble. But a fabulous run to the victory from Big Nick Matthews.
Right then, it is time to go to our Racer Nexus post-race interview show, and well, what can you say? It is going to be an interesting couple of conversations because we have our GTD Pro race winner on standby in the interview room. Let's bring him in from Sydney, Australia. Congratulations and welcome to Victory Lane, Henry Fenson. How about that one? A drama on turn 1, lap 1, Henry. A kind of a turnaround repeat of what happened between yourself and Lucia last week at Canada. But you pulled a blinder on everybody else in the pit stops.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it was unfortunate at the start. They went 3 wide, and I saw her getting squeezed out. So right as I went to brake, she braked just before I could, and I ran up the back of her. And then it was pretty tough. I did some damage to my front. I'm not sure where, but I couldn't turn right very well. Cooked my tyres. Decided I'll take left side tyres in my pit stop to try and make up for that. And luckily that fitted in my fuel, and I think I sent it into pit entry, so hopefully that must have been the difference for that one.
Well, apart from the congratulations, I have the wonderful honour of telling you just picked up a 1-month HIMO subscription courtesy of your race win tonight. How does that sound?
Oh, that's awesome. Perfect.
But I mean, it's you know, we've seen you with us. I think you know, you made a distinct impression on myself and Jake up here in the commentary box at Long Beach. Obviously, Canada, bit of a different story there as well. You know, you and Lucia qualified on the front row, and then just all hell broke loose coming into the hairpin. This championship has just become so much more competitive over the duration of this 9th season. How happy are you to be a part of a really closely packed field in GT, especially not just in GTD Pro, but what we're seeing with the GTDs as well?
Yeah, the GTDs look exciting. They got a new winner every week, it looks like. Yeah, it's good fun with the pro guys. I just wish I could have qualified better a few times, keep leaving myself all the hard work. So yeah, if I can qualify a bit better and be able to manage my race up the front, yeah, it's good fun racing with these guys.
Well, Henry, congratulations on the victory here tonight for round 5 of GT World Challenge for HPR Season 9. Before we let you go, anyone you'd like to give a shout out to in particular?
Yeah, just like to thank all the boys: Evolution Sim Sports, Grayman Electrical Data, Premium Designs, Cataclysm Computers, Skid Kings, JJ and SC Raceware, iRacing Down Under, Premium Cinematography, Down Under Sim TV. Cheers to Carlos and everyone who puts this on. It's awesome fun. I'm really glad I got on board with it, and thanks to you guys for the broadcast, because it's one of the best to go watch back after a race. It's good fun.
Really appreciate that final comment there, Henry. We look forward to seeing you next week when we go to Watkins Glen for round 6 on June 7th. We'll see you then, buddy. Well done tonight.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Wow, fantastic stuff, wasn't it? Really good. And I was so impressed with Henry throughout that. He was so smooth, so fluid. The other drivers, they kind of ended up crumbling under the pressure, didn't they, Alex? There were difficulties there that it just really got too hot to handle a couple of times through the stints. But the only one who kept his smooth fluidity, who managed to keep it all together, was Henry Fenson. Absolutely awesome.
Well, Jake, you've now got the prestigious honour of speaking to our GTD winner as Big Nick himself. Nicholas Matthews joins us.
I have indeed. Nick, what a stunning drive. That was so difficult to pull off as well. There was at least 4 of you through the course of that race that could have got the job done, especially in the last couple of laps to have, you know, Carlos Padilla really raining down on your parade. What does it feel like to get the job done?
It is incredible, for lack of a better term. It's a crazy feeling. I've had a really bad week, man, and it's this feels great.
I mean, when you were able to have so much pressure put on you, and there's a lot of focus around this particular circuit that's required, it's not kind to mistakes. How difficult was it in the middle phase when you're trying to guess where the pit stop's going to come, when you're trying to calculate how much of a drop-off you'll lose? What was it like?
Yeah, I was really on the edge, and I was sitting there luckily with one of my teammates, Alex, and we were just briefly talking, and I had a slip up and lost 2 positions, and it kind of made the decision for me. It was right there at the end of the lap, and it was like, I need to take a stop here. I need to refocus and hit the second half of this race hard.
What were the tire degradations like in the 2 stints? Because obviously many of the drivers in GTD went for 4 tires rather than the GTD Pros who got 2. How big a difference was it through the 2 stints in terms of where the tires were starting to drop off?
Oh, it was huge. It was, I think I was 75% on the left sides and 80% on the right sides, and it was lots of time gained by just taking and I took 3 tires, so I didn't take the right rear, but definitely needed.
I mean, it was a fantastic run. It's so difficult to predict who was going to get the job done. We've got a few more races to go. Anyone you want to give a shout out to as we head to the next race?
Yeah, I got to shout out Alex for sure from my team for helping me stay focused and making that call. I got to shout out all the Looney boys and all the Adrenaline Motorsports boys. Thank you, guys.
A stunning drive, Nick. We hope for more from that from the next round. Well done. Great job.
Thank you.
Well, what can we say about that race, Jake? It had everything and anything being thrown at us up here in the Global Broadcast Centre. I mean, like you said at the top of the show, Barcelona in real life isn't exactly the most enthralling thing. You put GTD cars on, you put GT3 cars, you put anything on on iRacing at Barcelona, you get everything, including the kitchen sink, the tumble, the washer and the tumble dryer thrown at you all at the same time.
I think there's just something about this place. I think people know it. They feel safe on this circuit, and therefore you can take a few more risks. And in esports, you kind of get into a comfort zone, and with that comfort zone comes perhaps a little bit of arrogance, maybe a little bit too much of an eagerness to progress. And the mistakes do come. I don't know what it is about Catalonia, but people just seem to have it in their heads that this place is familial. And you get a few more drivers pushing limits here, but there are some parts of the circuit that give you a little bit of leeway and others that don't. And tonight really demonstrated who's got the tenacity to make those gambles, to take those risks and to make them work, and who was more patient, who was more guarded. The winners of those races, the people on the podium, are the ones that took chances, yes, but were able to be patient and able to be a little bit more reserved when it needed to be, to make the tires go longer, to choose which moves were the best ones to make and which to back out of. It was a very carefully collaborated race. The people who made it to the podium are the ones who were really smart. They weren't just driving quick out there, they were driving calculated.
Yep, so another set of winners who both pick up a 1-month IMO subscription. Congratulations to to Henry Fenson and to Big Nick Matthews, courtesy of our title sponsor, IMO Setups, providing professional sim racing setups used by HPR drivers. Helps to elevate the standard of racing across all classes. And for the next 3 rounds to conclude season number 9, we'll be giving a 1-month subscription to IMO Setups for GTD Pro and GTD race winners. Also, a big thank you to our other sponsors, Monster Designs, providing custom race liveries, professional designs, and branding for drivers and teams. There are giveaways being handed out during Season 9 of GT World Challenge here for HPR, along with Season 5 of the IMSA series, which will be this coming Thursday night. You won't want to miss that. Finally, Admin Box, providing broadcast and operation support, helps race control, and is an organizational tool which helps to support leagues in how they work around and can communicate with drivers and with people that they want to outsource work to, and also providing a welcome structure. Barcelona, as always, can be ballistic, and here on High Point Racing GT World Challenge Season 9 Round 5, it truly delivered. Well, a big thank you to the team behind the scenes, to Jake Sanson, alongside myself, Alex Goldschmidt, here in the Global Broadcast Centre. A big thank you to our producer behind the scenes and the man who steers the Racer Nexus ship. That is, of course, Rob Campbell. A big thank you to our good friends at TrackCams22.com, TrackCams for connoisseurs, for providing the wonderful broadcast-style cameras that we have here on Racer Nexus. Well, the dust has settled in Montmello as we take a trip back stateside to the famous Watkins Glen Raceway on June 7th for round 6. The title's still very much up in the air as the battle lines are drawn and the war continues onwards. Thank you so much to everyone joining here on us here on the Racer Nexus Broadcast Network on YouTube. Don't forget, if you haven't already, like, share and subscribe. We'll see you same place, same time next week, and until then, race hard, race fair, and if in doubt, well, you better go flat out. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.